Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Team CSP, I welcome all of you to today's Kaavyaalaap Vaividhya session. This is the ninth session, and Kaavyaalaap is a poetic platform organized by the Consciousness Studies Programme at the National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. We have two forms of platforms that we are organizing. We have Kaavyaalaap Vaisistya, where specific poets will come and talk to us about different kinds of poetry and the nuances of it. We also have Kaavyaalaap Vaividhya, where we have multilingual poets who are invited and they would come and share their poetry with us. So today's is a Vaividhya session, and a very warm welcome to all of you to this session today. This is organized by myself, Meera Menon, and Preeth Kona, but it is conceptualized by Dr. Sankita Menon and Dr. Shankar Rajaraman, who are professors at the National Institute of Advanced Studies. So we welcome all of you again, and I welcome Dr. Shankar to speak a few words about Kaavyaalaap.
Thank you, Meera. Before I hand over to Preeth to introduce the poets, I have just a couple of points to make. We have covered most South Indian languages in the earlier sessions, except for Tamil, but we are very happy to inform you that in this session, we also have a Tamil poet amidst us. So in a way, we would have covered poetry in all the four South Indian languages. The other point is that we have made an announcement to invite multilingual poets, and we'll be very happy if you can pass on this message to poets whom you know, especially poets in languages like Odia, Bengali, Gujarati, etc., of whom we have not listened much. So with these two points, I hand over to Preeth and request him to introduce the poets for today and call upon the first poet to recite his poetry.
Namaskara, a very warm welcome to one and all. I'm very excited to announce or inform we have a lineup of great poets today with us. The first poet would be Astha Bhatt. Astha is an avid reader, a wonderful artist who paints, sketches, and dances. She studied literature and is an academician now. She says, my sarcasm is the source of my humor. I am shy, and that's why often written words are my ways of expressions. We welcome you, Astha. Following, we have Mr. Ganesan. Mr. Ganesan has multiple professional qualifications, along with graduate level diplomas in Sanskrit and Hindi and a certificate in French. He's deeply interested in comparative philology. He's had keen interest in poetry since a very young age. And as far as Tamil poems go, he is an autodidact and would be presenting ancient Tamil poetry from Sangam literature and poetries of Subramanya Bharati. We welcome you, sir. And the last poet of today's session would be Ms. Sabna. Sabna is a PhD scholar in the School of Social Science at the National Institute of Advanced Studies. She works in areas of menstrual studies, gender issues, and education. And I welcome one and all, and I would request Astha to start with the recitation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible to all of you. Am I? Am I audible to everyone? I'm not sure because of the...
Could you please be a little louder, maybe?
Is this okay?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like Preeth said, I have studied literature, though I am not a very curious poet. I do not write very often. I am extremely fond of reading, but sometimes I do like to pen down something that comes to my mind. And I have been exposed to 3 languages in my lifetime, though I do not write in Gujarati that much, and Hindi is the only language I read in, but I try to write it in English. So today first I'll talk about a poem which is very close to me and to my mother. And it also goes along with how right now we are all being under the subjected to nature's mercy. So I would like to start with a poem which is written by a Gujarati author called Dhruv Bhatt. You might know him as the author of Tatvamasi, the book which was adapted into a movie which was called Reva. So the background about this poem is that once while on his way to another seminar or another program, Dhruv Bhatt passed by a farmer who was working in blazing heat. And so he asked him that, how are you feeling? How are you today? And instead of complaining about how the farming is going or how the nature is cruel or how there is no rain, the farmer replies that I am joyous, I am blessed by nature, and I do not have any complaints. So inspired by him, that is a poem that Dhruv created. It is a little bit of a song, so I'll give you a translation once I finish one stanza after another. So the words go, O chintu koi mane raste madine kadi ધીરેથી પૂછે કે કેમ છે ઓ ચિંતુ કોઈ મને રસ્તે મળીને કદી ધીમેથી પૂછે કે કેમ છે તો આપણે તો કહીએ કે દરિયાસી મોજમાં ને ઉપરથી કુદરતની રહેમ છે ઓ ચિંતુ કોઈ મને રસ્તે મળીને કદી ધીમેથી પૂછે કે કેમ છે તો આપણે તો કહીએ કે દરિયાસી મોજમાં ને ઉપરથી કુદરતની રહેમ છે. The English translation of the stanza goes is that if I am walking down the path one day and suddenly someone asks me, how are you today? I'll say, oh, I am joyous as the waves of the ocean because I have the grace of the nature's head on my head. The next stanza goes, ફાટેલા ખિસ્સાની આડમાં મૂકી છે અમે છલકાતી મલકાતી મોજ ફાટેલા ખિસ્સાની આડમાં મૂકી છે અમે છલકાતી મલકાતી મોજ એકલો ભૂન તોય મેળામાં હો એવું लाग्या करे छे मने रोज ताळू वसाय नहीं एवड़ी पटारी मां आपणो खजानो हेम खेम छे आपणे तो कहिए के दरियासी मौज मां ने उपरथी कुदरतनी रेम छे. The translation goes, in my tattered pockets, I hide overflowing waves of joy. I may be alone, yet at all moments of the day, I feel like I am in a carnival. On a treasure chest which cannot be locked, my treasure is perfectly intact. The last stanza is those. આંખોમાં પાણી તો આવે ને જાય નથી ભીતર ભીના થતી ઓછી આંખોમાં પાણી તો આવે ને જાય નથી ભીતર ભીનાશ થતી ઓછી.
I think there is a network issue. We'll wait for a few minutes. In that case, if Asta is not able to come back, we'll go to Ganesan Sir and probably get back to Asta after a while.
left the meeting. I think there's a glitch.
I think there must be a network issue, and hence I think she must have gone out.
We can probably start with Ganesan sir, and
Okay, and then probably we'll do that. Yeah. Niharika, good. Yeah, thank you.
Namaste. First, my greetings to all those who are listening to this program, live or later as per their choice.
Not in the meeting, I think, because of the network issue. She has left the meeting.
Am I audible? Is there a problem? Sorry.
So there was a short interruption. There is no problem now, but Astha is back. So
okay.
If
Continue.
Yes.
Her
a chance? Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
certainly. No problem.
Astha, so please go on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start with the last stanza again. I'm sorry for the interruption. આંખોમાં પાણી તો આવે ને જાય નથી ભીતર ભી નાશ થતી ઓછી આંખોમાં પાણી તો આવે ને જાય નથી ભીતર ભી નાશ થતી ઓછી વધઘટના કાંઠા તો રાખે હિસાબ નથી પરવા સમંદર ને હોતી સૂરજ તો ઉગે અને આથમીએ જાય મારી ઉપર આકાશ એમનેમ છે વધઘટના કાંઠા તો રાખે હિસાબ નથી પરવા સમંદર ને હોતી ઓચિંતું કોઈ મને રસ્તે ને કદી ધીમેથી પૂછે કે કેમ છે આપણે તો કહીએ કે દરિયાસી મોજમાં ને ઉપરથી કુદરતની રહેમ છે The English translation of the last stanza goes, tears or water will come to my eyes and go, but the moistness in my heart will never diminish. Let the shore keep accounts of less and more. The ocean isn't bothered. The sun may rise and the sun may fall, but the sky over my head stays as it is. So this is one of the Gujarati poem that is very close and very intimate. And I usually also try to write something which is along the lines of nature. And I don't know how many of you are acquainted with the MSU campus, but near the English department and the archaeology department used to stand an old bamboo tree, which has now been cut off because obviously it aged and it died. And according to one of the professor, the bamboo tree lasts for almost a human age, that is 180 to 100 years. And it shows the signs of death when it has golden florets flowing down. So we, as students of the English department, used to spend a lot of time under that trees, either studying or having a time of ourselves. And once we came to know that the bamboo tree will be chopped off very soon, I penned down a poem which I'll read now. I have titled it Farewell to the Campus Bamboo. I don't know if you are still listening to what I say, but I have to say it. What if you go away in May? Offering canvas to foolish lovers, honeybees, a bird over you hovers. Stories are hidden in those nooks as I spent mornings there with books. Your green leaves are drunk with amber wine you have shrunk. Flowers thine prick my skin, famine they say will begin. It's not autumn, yet you shed. Strange way to go to bed. I have stopped brushing them away, the souvenirs you shower all day. Bristles in my hair they hang. Do you know the songs you sang? Call me when you hum the last note. For that, a lump still remains in my throat. Dear gold umbrella amidst red bricks, blowing away the flames over the wicks. Where and when will I see you again, do foretell. Till that time, I say farewell. Um, Another poem. I usually am very fascinated with people who have long hair, and my mother also used to have very long hair before she got married. And inspired by the photographs that she has, I wrote a small poem how combing hair or making what we call a choti is also very therapeutic and kind of an nurturing activity that a person passes on. So the next poem goes this way. Take a strand of her hair and cross it over another. Tighten the pleats with fortification. Make sure the fingertips are dipped in coconut oil. Press the knots for nourishment. Comb over the ends, spread on your palms, roll them in a ball of assurance. Holding an earthen pot of spiritual smoke, infuse the traces with fragrance of faith. Push two pins black to bridle the loose threads and remind her to be careful of distractions. With your thumbs, let her nape be undone, ridden of inhibitions, and to fill them with pride. Then from the brass plate, pick up the jasmines, wrap it around to teach her of love. This is the second poem. And the last one is, despite we being at home and we being on a momentary lockdown, we are still consumed by a lot of things in the world, which does not allow us to take in all the beauty that we are surrounded with. Some things go unnoticed, something we do not try to pay attention to. So the last poem is about the things of beauty that we do not appreciate anymore. We do not appreciate beauty anymore. The twigs and wilted petals, chipped cups and rusted kettles, dried leaves when they rustle, urban evening and the hustle, broken teeth and dentured smiles, just standing for a while, dusty dome, wooden stairs, wobbly tables, squeaky chairs, early mornings and birds, unspoken, unheard, those words, drenched diaries with spilled ink, stories lived over a drink, oiled pleats and cold eyes, brown skin and first cries, spiced bowls, tinkling spoons, swings, kites, and balloons, green farms, salty waves, now snow-capped hills and caves, laughing, thumping, breathing, bleeding, loving, healing, work, time, schedule, daily chores. We do not appreciate beauty anymore. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Astha, for those beautiful poems. Very happy that this is the first time in the 9 sessions of Kaavyaalaap we heard Gujarati. And for the other beautiful English poems of yours, thank you so much. I would now request Mr. Ganesan to start with his recitation. Over to you, sir. I think we'll wait for about 30 seconds or a minute. If sir does not return, I would request Sabna in that case. Or I think we would, Sabna, I would request you to start your poetry, and then probably we would end with Ganesan sir. Over to you, Sabna. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Preeth. I'm happy to have this opportunity to recite my poem over here. So the poem which I've written, it's all about, it was written during lockdown days when I came across various news and various reports which says that there are increasing number of domestic violence cases in India. So the poem is a glimpse of empathetic thoughts which are related to women, for those women who fight every day to come out of their house, to work, to be independent, to come out of social norms, to come out of social ties, and the way they look at these lockdown days for them, the way they are worried because of the lockdown. So the poem is all about this. So here I start my poem. Title of the poem is Woman in Closed Door, Corona Times. Here it starts. As I scream to pass this space, my soul is dwindling. I detest the touch as the river empties into sea. I oppose the process. I shun the subjected anger, ego, and lust. I rejoice the memories of escapism, to workplace, to study, and to explore. The one which saved from these, kept me sane and hiding my pain, was relief away from home. Every hit these days on my body, on my soul, I challenge each of them. All within are they stem. The fear which I broke, the confidence which I gained, the instinct which guided, all are silent bearers, listeners, and promoters. Each moment, night is darker, and so is the day. Even the daylight is not a boon within closed door of my own cocoon. So this is the small poetry which I wrote during lockdown days. Hope you liked it. And I find it relatable. I mean, I got even feedback from many people who find this poem relatable to their to the experience which they were having during lockdown days. I hope you like it.
Hello. So
Would you
Sabna,
like me to explain or something like?
no, that's okay.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you want to speak, talk, or any other poetry that you would like to recite?
Uh, okay. I have not kept, but then can you give me just uh,
That's
5
okay.
seconds?
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for the wonderful poetry. If there is anything you could, Ganeshan sir is also here.
Okay.
If there is anything, please, after Ganeshan sir, if you
After Ganeshan sir, I would
yes,
like to
you
then.
wish to,
Okay.
yeah, thank you so much. And Niharika ji, if you could, yeah, Ganeshan sir.
So may I?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm perfect. Am I audible? Really?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay. Namaste. First, my greetings to all those who are listening to this program, live or later, as per their choice, and to the entire team of Consciousness Study Program of the NIAS, especially Dr. Shankar Rajaraman, who inspired me to take part in this program, and my very young co-presenters, Astabaj and Sabna. Let me begin with an invocation in Tamil. This is by Subramanya Bharati. Ganapati Rayan Avaniru Kalai Pidithiduvom Gunamuyandidave Vidudalai Kudi Magindidave. I'll come back to the meaning of this invocatory verse later in this reading. The art of writing good poetry and its appreciation by one and all has been vanishing in a fast-paced, technology-driven world. Art subjects such as literature, of which poetry forms the bulk, at least until about 100 years ago, are losing their value as a vain time pass or an insufficient qualification to earn a decent living. Yet, its utility is now being recognized as a tool to hold the overworked human brain from falling apart, and therefore as a natural stress buster. Now, I ventured into writing poems from a very young age, but very recently, maybe about 5-6 years back, I ventured into translating into English our classical poetry, particularly from Sanskrit and Tamil. Later, this extended to translating all sorts of poems as prose passages and prose passages into English, often from many sources unknown to me until then in the social media. I'll now go on to the challenges I have faced in some of my translations. In translating didactic poetry, I have faced many problems. Tirukkural, a classical Tamil didactic poem of 1,330 couplets, each couplet being only of 7 words. Translating from the original and then fitting the translation as an English couplet with the original meaning intact was a Herculean task. Some of the original couplets comprise of alliterative words and have a good rhythmic effect in Tamil, what is called Osai Nayam. Osai Nayam means the aesthetics of sound. Now, there is one Kural I want to cite, and the translation I have given to that. This is Kural number 12. I'll read it in Tamil. Tupparku tuppaya, tuppaki tupparku, tuppaya thum malai. The word tuppaki is just gun. So anyone hearing this would be wondering, what is this poem about tuppaki and all that? Now, in plain English, it means rain sustains one in helping to grow food, as well as serves by being a food in itself in the form of drinking water. So Thiruvalluvar talks about the greatness of rain. Van Sirappu is the chapter heading. The poem uses the Tamil word tuppar with its cognate variations repeatedly for its sound effects. The word is now extinct in modern Tamil. My translation is, food is what the rain produces for one who needs to eat. Food is the water too that the rain gives one as food need. So I just tried to make it as a rhyming couplet as Thiruvalluvar did, but yet I have not done full justice to the poem. Later, in translating the Niti Shatakam of Raja Bhartrihari, however, which is almost an ethical code of conduct, I did not face any such issue. But in spiritual texts like Ashtavakra Gita, where abstract Upanishadic thoughts are presented, the translator finds himself at sea. Now, getting back to our invocatory verse, which is by our national poet Subramanya Bharati, the meter of the poem is called a Kanni in Tamil. Kanni is a short two-line, or it could be 4-line verse meter, and the musical effect of its words renders itself as a handy prayer. So, the people who do discourses in Tamil, they use this as a prayer. Couched in straight words, no fancy words, no high literary words, without any ornamentation. Its plain translation is, let us clasp the feet of Ganapati. Ganapati Rayan avaniru kaalai pidithiduvom. For improvement in our quality, gunamuyarndidave, that is for enhancing our quality and to enjoy our days of liberty. So he mixes patriotism with devotion. In fact, Bharati is known as national poet because of his patriotic songs. I'll also cite one more Bharati's poem later in this. Bharati combines a prayer song with the thirst for freedom. Then another long devotional poem of 100 Tamil verses on goddess Abhirami in Antadi format, I took up for translation, a task I completed over an incredible period of 5 years, 100 verses in 5 years. I went up to 50 without any hitch, but somehow there was a, writer's block, and I could not touch. But when the lockdown was announced on account of Corona, I finished it in flat 20-25 days. So Corona was a blessing to me. Then in translating descriptive poems or purely devotional poems, packing a lot of historical narratives and facts or epical allegories, that is a big issue. One faces a serious disadvantage, as a 4-line original poem may go up to 40 lines in English, because you'll have to explain what the poet wants to say. And any poem from the Sangam Tamil literature or from the purely devotional saga like, Nalayira Divya Prabandham, 4,000 Divya Prabandha in the Vaishnava genre, or the Saiva Tirumurai, the Saivate genre, or you even like regional poems like Narayaniyam in Sanskrit, which is an abridged form of Srimad Bhagavatam, I found myself lacking for words suitable to convey the original meaning in English. It is typical of the spiritual literature. This is because there are a lot of non-translatables in our language, particularly in Sanskrit, like the word dharma. Dharma cannot be just righteousness, translated as righteousness. It encompasses the practice of the principle of life as enjoined in the Shastras, as per well-established precedents by renowned sages for the purpose of realizing dharma. So dharma itself is for realizing dharma. So you can appreciate the woes of the translator. I mentioned about Narayaniyam. Here is a sampler, which is, Narayaniyam is a book of 1036 verses in fine Sanskrit, because the author, Narayana Bhattatri, was a Sanskrit grammarian too. So this particular verse, or the chapter of 10 verses, is set to the meter called Druta Vilambit. Druta Vilambit means that is fast, slow. Now, I'll read out the original. Ruchira Kampita Kundala Mandala Suchira Misa Nanatita Pannage. Amara Tadita Dundubi Sundaram Viyati Gayati Daivata Yavate. Now, how to translate this or how to do justice to the aesthetics of sound in the meter? I have translated this like, sang the divine damsels mellifluous to the tune of cymbals of the gods, dance long you on the heads of Kaliya with your earrings swaying in rhythm. This is Kaliya Mardana, that is Krishna dancing on the heads of the anaconda Kaliya. One more pitfall in translation is finding equivalents for divine names that abound in our literature. How does one find equivalent names of 108 or 1008 names of Lalita, Shiva, Vishnu? So translating Vedic Sanskrit, where many abstract thoughts are presented, just give up the exercise. Now, there is another recent experience which I am now doing on Twitter in translating a work called Tirumandiram. Now, Tirumandiram is a Saiva Siddhanta literature where primacy is given to Lord Shiva. The poems are couched in very, very common language. If you just look at it, you will not understand what the poet says, or the meaning is very, very simple to understand. But metaphorically, the poet refers to something else, which is attaining the feet of Shiva. Marattai maraitadu mamada yanai, maratil maraindadu mamada yanai, parattai maraindadu parmudal bhutam, paratil maraindadu parmudal bhudame. So what he says is, in simple or the plain meaning is, an elephant is made of wood, and the elephant is hiding the tree from which wood it has been made. Likewise, the God has made the 5 elements, but the 5 elements are hiding the God. And the 5 elements, when they strike in one form or another, like a tsunami or cyclone or we get to know there is a God. So this is the inner meaning of the poem. Now, one can go on and on with such examples of literary poems posing great hurdles. Now, this is Navaratri period. So let me turn to references to the festival in Tamil literature. Though there are umpteen poems to the female trinity, Durga, Lakshmi, and Saraswati, in specific reference to the festival as such is almost nil in the Tamil literature. My hunch is that this festival, with all the pomp of a formal sitting of kings in Darbar, and on the last day of Vijayadashami, a symbolic show of archery, have all the regal paraphernalia. So the festival used to be celebrated only by kings and later in temples. Early Chola kings appear to have celebrated this festival. There are references, but not in poetry, but in inscriptions, temple inscriptions. As the title Odayar, which is Udayar in Tamil, are the same, I feel that the kingdom of Mysore is still celebrating this festival with traditional pomp and splendor as a carry forward of the Chola traditions. For historically, the last Chola kings settled in a region of Karnataka. So I think they must have spread this festival. Then some references are there in early Sangam Tamil literature. I'll now read out a verse from Tirumurugatrupadai, which is one of the 10 great ballads or Pattu Paattu. It's Malaymagal Magane, Maatror Kootre, Vetrivel Port Kotravai Sirva, Idayani Sirappin Padayol Kudavi, Vanor Vananguvil Thanai Talaivar. Translation: Oh, the war general son of spear wielding Kotravai. Kotravai is Durga, battle ready, and the child of the ancient god, that is Shiva, who is adorned with special ornaments. Here the references to Durga, her son Muruga, Shanmuka or Kumara, who was the general of the Deva's army against Daman's army, and the latter's father Shiva. And there are long references in Silapadikaram, one of the 5 great epics in Tamil. I'll read a piece. Aanai thol porthu puliyin urivuduthu, Tanathu erumai karundalai mel nindrayal, Vanor vananga marimel marayagi, Ñanak Kulundai, Nadukindri nirpaye. This is from a portion called Vettuvavari in Silapadikaram. The meaning is wrapped with the skin of an elephant, that is Krittivasaha we call in Sanskrit, and wearing the skin of a tiger, whom the celestial attend worshipfully. She is becoming hidden in the hidden Vedas. That is, even the hidden Vedas you cannot hide. You cannot find out who she is. She is so dense, shining as a resplendent torch and standing without a trace of tremor. This is the translation. Another place when the hero and heroine of the poem, great poem, Silapadikaram, Kovalan and Kannaki, go with a Jain monk. They spend a night at a temple of Kotravai. This is a long passage. Virinudar Kumari, Vinnor Pavai, Mayur Sirappin Vananadi, Ayaitan Kotam Adaindanar, Angu. Kalayamar Selvi Kadan, Unin Alladu, Selayamar Vetri, Kodupol Allal, Mattun Valke, Vendudirayin, Katun Makal Kadantarum, Yanangu, Madin Ventod Sudum Senni, Nudal Kirithu Vilita, Imaya Natathu, Pavalavaichi, Tavalavai Nagaichi, Nanju Undu Karuthu Kandi, Venjinathu Aravunan Putti, Nedumalai Valaitol, Tulai Eitru, Urakakachudai Mulai. Now I'll translate this. The one with an eye on her forehead, that is Durga, and the one celebrated as blemishless among the celestials, the great Kotravai, that is Durga. Kotravai's temple they reached. This is the first poem, first part of the poem. The one with a crescent moon on her head, Durga also has crescent moon as Shiva, with an eye on her forehead, again the same, crimson coral-like mouth with a smile showing her pearl-like teeth, a neck bluish revealing the halahala poison, a serpent as the bowstring, and Mount Meru as a bow, the poisonous serpent as a waist belt with big bosom, and a spear in her hands adorned with bangles. That is Kotravai Trishulam, that is spear. So the poet goes on further. Now, Subramanya Bharati, I refer to, he has written very many poems on Saraswati. In fact, he is a Kali Upasaka, Shakti. The Om Shakti, Om Shakti, Om is his, famous lines. Now, as there's a song which he calls Navaratri song by himself, eulogizing Ujjaini Kali. He has written many songs on Kali, Saraswati, Lakshmi too, which are par excellence. This song, that is particular Navaratri song, can be translated as O Nitya Kalyani of Ujjaini, Om Shakti. She is the reason of Ujjaya, and the Shankara Deva there. She is Uma, Saraswati, and Sri Mata. We hail the Maheshwara falling at his feet. She is so powerful as to bring the ideas of Satya Yuga in our hearts. So with that, I end. I have my own poems, but they are not very significant. That's why I thought my translations are better than my own poems. If there is another chance, I will, compile all of them and recite. So I must once again thank all of you for lending your patient ears to this reading. Thank you. I'm not here.
I'm sorry, sir. There was a technical glitch.
Yeah, okay. Right, I'm able to hear.
Thank you so much for those wonderful poems. You actually back to the Sangameth, sir, from presenting the Kurals of Tiruvalluvar and some amazing poetry of Silapadikaram, then getting us down all the way to 17th century Narayaniam and some really good poetry of Subramanya Bharati. This is the first time again, like the Gujarati poetry was presented here for the first time. Likewise, Tamil poetry was also for the first time, and
Thank you.
quite some dense content. Thank you so much. And likewise, even Astha presented a beautiful poem by a very celebrated Gujarati poet, Dhruv Bhatt, who's famous for his Tattvamasi, one of his most famous books. And she presented her poems, which is quite melancholic, Bamboo Tree, and a beautiful poetry on hair.
Yes.
And thank you, Sabna. It was beautiful reflections of a woman, which is also an area of interest in research work. She's working on menstrual health and gender studies. Thank you for presenting your poem, Sabna. Now the floor is open for discussions. The poets have questions for each other, any point of discussions. If anybody has anything to ask, say or comment, you could put up your questions on the comment box, or if you want to talk, we could also unmute you. You should kindly let us know.
Yeah, unmuting would be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I must congratulate Astha. That was really a wonderful poem from the poet who wrote Tattvamasi. And her own poem, that I was just touched by that line. Farewell to a bamboo tree, bamboo tree. Call me when you hum last. That was really a touching. This one, in fact, I would like to translate the poem as the other poem by Tattvamasi Ada. I have not got the name correctly. So Asta, can you, give me the name of the poet and also what inspired you to write? Oh, you said that, yes, the bamboos being cut off and all that.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you for your compliment. And initially, I was just surfing through a lot of videos on the internet, and I came across a performance by a document director called Shabnam Virmani, who sang this poem. And then when I further read into it, I came to know that this was written by a Gujarati poet. The book that I talked about is called as Tattvamasi. It is about the pilgrimage that he took along with his companions along the border, along the shore of the river Narmada, which is the ancient name, as we recall, is called Reva.
Yeah.
So a movie of the same name was made based on the book, and the whole uh, notion of we being at the mercy and under the blessing of nature is what enchants this poem to me. And about the bamboo tree, it has been a very special memory because I spent almost 2 to 3 years surrounding the space and the area where we had academic discussions, very intimate private conversations with teachers, with friends, even something that is the whole atmosphere that the campus created. And bamboo was a very significant uh, symbol for me, because with my MA getting over, the bamboo tree was also reaching the end of its life. So
Oh,
a kind of a poignant sentiment around it. And it so
nice.
happens that when I went to work, the place also has bamboo trees, though they are lush green over there. So the bamboo tree has been following me for quite a lot of time.
Awesome.
And yeah, so trees in general, but bamboo in specific, kind of. Yeah,
That's right.
that's
In fact, there is there is one healing method called pranic healing, where they go to trees which emit out prana, particularly people tree, bamboo tree. It's said they emit a lot of prana, that is life, the vital force. So you go there and they have a technique, they just spread their hands for some time, 5 minutes or even it could be seconds. And they draw prana. That is, they are depleted in vital force and they draw prana from the trees. That's a wonderful, this one, it is in our Indian mythology too. But now, it is repackaged and presented to us as somebody by in Thailand. Yeah.
This reminds me of our very first Kaavyaalaap Vaividhya session. We had a poet amidst us called Miss Lena Pascal. She had a very beautiful poetry on the bamboo groove. So we are in the 9th session. So there is one more beautiful poetry on the bamboo. So when you were reciting this particular poetry, it took me back to what Miss Lena had recited in this space. Thank you so much, Astha and Ganesan sir. Yes, as such, Shankar sir.
Yeah, thank you. My personal thanks to all the poets. Today, I did not write down any notes, and therefore I was able to completely enjoy the poems that were recited. I have a question to Ganesh sir. Um, you spoke about the translation of Abhirami Andadi, isn't it, sir?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Did you follow the format of the Andadi in your translation too? And if you have a sample, can you recite it to us?
In Tamil or the translation?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the translation.
no, actually, I don't have it handy.
Okay.
I can, I can mail it to you.
Sure.
I was trying to follow the Antadi format up to a certain level, but somehow, as I told you, after 50 verses, I stopped and I could not resume it at all. Only after 5 years, I resumed and I lost somewhere, and that format did not strike. But up to 50 verses, I made it a point to do that in the Antadi format in English too.
So maybe you can explain to the audience about the Andadi and any other similar Andadi creations in Tamil.
Yeah, Antadi is just like Antakshari, like, someone recites a poem or someone recites a song, and the next person takes the last word of the song and proceeds. It is just like this one. This is Antadi. Antadi is written in a Samavritta, that is called Samavritta, means each line has syllables, equal syllables. So that is Samavritta. And that is why it is very, musical in while singing. And again, this last word is followed in the next poem. And there are thousands of Antadis in Tamil literature. In fact, in Tamil, it is what we have known. We have got what's known as Chitrilakkiyam. Chitrilakkiyam means, I mean, they are not very big literature, but they are 100 verses, 30 or 40 verses, and all this. There are like that. So they fall under the category of Chitrilakkiyam. But mostly they are devotional songs. It is about a goddess or god. Antadi is, Abhirami Antadi is about Abhirami, goddess Abhirami. Actually, this is, Abhirami is equivalent to Lalita or Srividya. It is almost the same. And she is said to, Lalita, like goddess Lalita, is the controlling force of all the three, the Trinity, that is Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma. And also she has two other functions. One is giving grace, and another one is she hides. So that is called. So these five qualities are invested in one god. So we can call her a super goddess. And this, particularly this Abhirami Antadi, why he wrote was, the poet, he is simply called Abhirami Bhatta. He was, fiercely into the worship of Abhirami. So he was, condemned as a dullard, and people did not regard him and all that. And one day the king came, and just to insult him before the king, they asked the king, to put a question to him. What is the tithi today? Or tithi on a particular day? And without, a thought, the poet replied is Paurnami, that particular day. But that particular day happened to be Amavasya, later on he found. So he wrote 100 verses in Antadi format. And when the day came, the earrings of, or ear studs of Abhirami, that the goddess there in that temple, it is in Tanjore district, the earrings shone and, reflected in the moon, and it looked as a full moon day. So the king was very much pleased with his mystic powers, and he honored him and all that. So that is the story. And he has written just yet one another work, minor work. But this poem is very famous amongst, Devi Bhaktas in Tamil Nadu.
Thank you, sir.
There is a question, I think Mr. Praveen has raised his hand. Apart from there are a few more questions in the chat box. Niharika ji, could you please unmute Mr. Praveen?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hello, sir. My question is for Ganesan, sir. Sir, yes. I have been in. Sorry, am I audible to you, right?
Yes, Mr. Praveen, you're audible.
Yes, sir. I have been in spiritual path for more than 7 years now, from Osho, Jiddu Krishnamurti, Raman Maharshi, Moji, and all. So, and now I have come to Vedas and Upanishads. When I was reading certain Upanishads, mainly the Mandukya Upanishad, so I want you to comment on translating spiritual books without an inner experience, because I have struggled to understand the actual meaning, what different authors write. It's a small Upanishad, but the most powerful one, and the authors try to translate it in their own way without inner experience. So I want you to comment on that. Am I wrong, or I was not able to understand, or now with certain experiences I'm able to clearly understand it, or something like that? I want you to comment on this.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. It's a very deep question. Our Shrutis are, handed down by the oral tradition. That is, the Guru recites and the disciple picks up. There is a particular portion in the Taittiriya Upanishad called Bhrigu. Bhrigu was the son of Varuna. He approaches after all the studies are completed with his father, he approaches his father. He asks, what is Brahma? Brahma is not Brahma, the creator. What is Brahman? The supreme state, supreme, entity you can call. He says, go and do penance. And he comes, see, one after another, whether it is food, or whether it is mind, whether it is vijnana, that is the special knowledge. And what is the Brahma? Finally, he arrives at Ananda, the bliss is Brahma. Then both the father and son agree and they go about things. Now, why I'm relating this to your query is, these Shrutis cannot be translated unless one goes through the spiritual process. So if I don't understand Veda, if I have not, learned it by the proper tradition, that is a preceptor teaching me, and just by reading a book, I cannot certainly imbibe any of the teachings of Vedas or Upanishads. Upanishads are extension of Vedas, that is why they are called Vedangas. So it is difficult. So you have various bhashyas, as they call. Bhashyas are commentaries or glosses from Shankara, Madhva, Ramanuja, and the Gauda, this one, the Gaudiya sannyasis. They all write in their own limited approach. It is very difficult to understand the real meaning. That is why you have to be immersed into this. You have to learn it. Then you have to slowly realize what is said there. In fact, most of these Upanishads also, if you see particularly Yajnavalkya's conversation with Maitreyi, you will find this very, very clearly. That is, you have to go through the spiritual process by yourself to understand. Otherwise, whatever translations you do, I too try sometimes, but it is all very dry, and you can just capture one or two words, but the full essence you cannot. That is in fact, the Vedas are known as Apaurishaya. Apaurishaya means it is unwritten by any human being. Purushaya, Apaurishaya. So you have to go through the spiritual process. Otherwise, you be content with whatever translation and compare and see for yourself which is more acceptable. Have I answered your question?
Yeah. Thank you, Ganesan sir and Mr. Praveen, for that question. Mr. Srikanth is here. Sir, your comments, please. Niharika ji, if you could unmute Srikanth sir. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think it was in reference to the question that Sri Shankar was asking about translating and keeping Antadi format. I think it's always a challenge to do that. And it's not always possible. So which is why I was sort of mentioning my own sort of efforts, I think partly fruitful and partly it's been halted, probably because it was proven to be quite difficult. The Tiruvandadi, which is actually 100 verses in the Divya Prabandham, I have been translating, or I had been translating. I've done about 40 or 45, I think, maintaining the Antadi format and also maintaining a meter, different meter, of course, suitable to the Kannada genius rather than the Tamil genius. I think, yes, it has been challenging. And sometimes you just have to go with the flow. I think the tension is always between, do you want to maintain the original essence of it? Do you want to follow the words, or do you want to follow the format? And sometimes the twain shall never meet, and you've got to go with the, I think, what you consider is the most useful. And to me, it's a no-brainer. You've got to go with the essence of the verse. That's what you need to convey in the translation, and not necessarily the meter or anything else, because they are all external trappings. I think what is said in the verse needs to be conveyed as faithfully and losslessly as possible. It's not always going to be successful, and mostly it won't be 100%. But I think, yeah, as long as we have got our priorities right, I think the poet that's doing the translation should go with it. I was also mentioning that Sri Ganesan is, I think he's taken it upon himself to translate the Sriman Narayanam into free-flowing English, and that's coming out really well. I think from time to time, he also attempts to make English translations in verse, which also flow very well. So I hope that Ganesan sir will be actually doing more of those verslations rather than plain text translations. Thank you very much. I wasn't able to hear all of yours completely because I had to step out. But what I heard has been really great. Thank you all for everyone's efforts.
Thank you, Srikanth. It's been a wonderful experience working with you.
Yeah. Indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Srikanth sir. Thank you, Ganesan sir. We'll take one last question. I think Mr. Raju has a question. Niharika ji, could you please unmute Mr. Raju?
can read out the question, Preeth.
Okay, I'll do that. Sir, his question was regarding Bharatiya's poem. Can you recite the original verse of the Bharatiya's last poem you recited in English on card?
Oh, Ujjaini Makali, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'll have to get that book. Okay. Just a second. I'll
Sir,
just,
that's okay. In that case, it's okay. Absolutely fine, sir. Probably
in fact, the
your
translation
email
is not
address
much.
to probably reach out to you.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I can mail you the entire thing.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
So we have,
You know,
we'll be taking further questions. We have a WhatsApp group. We'll be taking further questions there. So if there are any further questions or comments or suggestions, we'll be opening up our WhatsApp group for an hour where we'll have the today's speakers. And if there are queries, participants could ask their questions there. Thank you so much, one and all.
Yeah,
now,
welcome.
yeah. You want to say something, sir? I'm sorry.
No, that's all. Thank you.
I would
the
request.
queries are welcome.
Yeah, I would request Meera to give us the word of thanks. Meera, is Meera here?
Preeth, you can proceed further.
Okay. That's okay. I'm sorry. I think Meera, probably a network issue. Thank you so much, one and all, for being present here today. Thank you, Asta. Thank you, Ganesan Sir, and thank you, Sabna, for presenting this wonderful poetry. On behalf of Team Kaavyaalaap, I would wish to convey our gratitude to all the participants also present here, and especially thank Ms. Prasangita Menon, who's the head of the School of Humanities at the National Institute of Advanced Studies, for a constant love and support. And I would like to inform that our next session is Kaavyaalaap Vaisistya on the 3rd of November. We have it's Poetry in Motion. We have a famous art historian amidst us. We would have Ms. Gayatri Iyer, who would be presenting how poetry is presented through dance. She's been a classical dancer all her life too. So looking forward to everybody's presence on the 3rd of November. Thank you, one and all, for your participation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Namaste.